Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is msnobuntu. Welcome back to my channel, named right after my name. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Peruse through all the playlists, and if you like what you see here on the channel, make sure that you subscribe down below. Where it says subscribe on the red button, and also next to the red button there is a notifications bell, which is the bell icon. Click that too and select how often you'd like to be notified for every time that I do upload a video. Without further ado, let's get into this two-part series, which is a response video on narcissistic abuse, the tyranny of narcissistic abuse. Enjoy. So here on Facebook, there are a number of channels that talk about narcissism and narcissistic disorder and narcissistic relationships, either with parents, or narcissistic mom, or narcissistic father, or narcissistic family, and different groups that do talk in depth and in detail about narcissistic tyrannical abuse and the nature of it and the signs of it and how to save yourself from it and how to lay down boundaries and keep your boundaries set in order that you are no longer on the receiving end of narcissistic tyrannical abuse. I was watching earlier on this week from ASSC Direct. I was watching the particular video titled "Explaining Your Narcissist Experience to People Who Don't Know is Useless." And I was just thinking about that notion of trying to explain narcissistic tyrannical abuse to people, and it is true that it is useless. And so I just wanted to weigh in and add, because I've had this experience myself, and say this, that narcissistic, I call it narcissistic tyrannical abuse, is as serious as rape. It's as serious as domestic abuse. That's how narcissistic abuse is. And I've found that anytime when I try to explain to people being abused by a narcissist, they chalk it up to just another bad experience, but they actually don't realize the searing effects and the searing trauma of narcissistic abuse, and that it goes beyond, oh, I just have a bad boss, or I just have a bad manager, I just have a manager who's just whatever, is not a nice person and makes my life difficult at work. It's so much more intense than that. It's so much more serious. When I was listening to this to ASCC's Direct's video about it's useless to try and explain this to people, and I thought, how can I explain this to people so that people do not downplay it, to suck it up and stay in that workplace or stay in that situation. It's because narcissistic abuse is as serious as if you had gotten raped. It's as violent as that. It's as violent as if someone came into your house at night and you woke up to a gun facing you. It's as violent as someone chasing you through the streets at night trying to kill you. It's as violent as being beaten up. It's a very traumatic experience. And it goes way beyond the surface of, oh, I just had a bad day today. They know how to lay it on and lay it on thick and perpetually and incessantly, to the point where you cannot really focus on your work. How angry it makes you as the person who's on the receiving end of it. I refuse to put the word victim. I will say the person who's on the receiving end of it. They are very good at making you look crazy, and driving you to look crazy, to make you very angry. They're very good at traumatizing you. They're very good at, they study you and try to figure out what your buttons are, the things that set you off are, and they're very good at trying to find those and pressing and doing this at all your buttons. A narcissist is a highly immature, childish individual. They really operate at that level of immaturity, and they also operate at a very violent level, at a very diabolical level. They have absolutely no ability to have any or exercise any kind of compassion. When they see you suffer, they are doing cartwheels in their hearts, in their minds, inside. They are actually happy. These are very sadistic individuals. And I would say, when you hear someone saying to you, I have been at the receiving end of narcissistic abuse, take it as if you've heard them just say, I was sexually abused as a child. I was just raped yesterday. I was beaten up to a pulp yesterday. I was stopped at gunpoint in the dark yesterday. That's how serious narcissistic abuse is. That's how serious the violence of it is. Now, I think people don't take it seriously and they don't understand it because there is no physical evidence. There is no physical evidence, and there are no worldly markers that are considered to be violent that can be linked to what the person does to you in order to make you feel crazy, in order to stress you out, in order to harp on your buttons, in order to really just try to annihilate you through manipulation, control, lying, witchcraft. Narcissists are not beyond the occult. They will go to many and every length in order to try and get you. Narcissistic abuse is the most cowardly way of abusing a person. If you think about the mind-body connection, what happens in the mind, there's a connector in the body that connects what happens in the mind, so that if you are traumatized psychologically, it can manifest and culminate physically. And narcissists, somehow they know it. They know that I don't want to touch this person because I'm gonna go to jail if I beat this person up. I cannot rape this person. I cannot physically abuse this person, but I'm going to mess with their minds so that the very same kind of symptoms of abuse, stress, trauma, just being really tired and being wired out and questioning your sanity, I'm going to do that to them instead. But there's no way that it can be traced back. And narcissists know this. And that's why their kind of abuse is the most is particularly dangerous, particularly sadistic, particularly sick, and particularly diabolical, because somehow they know that the kind of abuse that they put you through, the pressure that they put on, and the kind of trauma that they put you through affects you physically very badly. The narcissist really knows that it cannot be traced back to them, because they are able to play this chameleon kind of character where they present themselves a certain way before people and in public as a nice person, charismatic, infectious. But when they're dealing particularly with you, they are very hateful, they're very calculating, they're very manipulative, they're very abusive, and in a very hateful and diabolical manner, in such a way that it really sears one's mind and it really violates one. Being at the receiving end of narcissistic abuse is a very violent thing to go through, because it is this my experience being abused by a narcissist and a tyrant was that it's this thing that's very calculated. It's well thought out. The lies are well thought out and well calculated. The manipulation is well thought out and well calculated, and it is fueled by hate, and it is diabolical essentially, and the intention really is to damage you as close to death as you can get. If they can destroy you, they will. if they can destroy you in a way that does not trace back to them, they will. And that's why they're very calculating and they're very manipulative, and they present themselves as one way when they're just dealing with you, and then they come across as something else when they're out in public. It's because it's to confuse everyone else. Like, this is a nice person, this is a nice lady, this is a nice man. What is she talking about? She must be crazy. And that's what a narcissistic is the master of doing. They are the master of making you look crazy, but they make you crazy at a very deep level, because narcissists are willing to do whatever it takes to be right. They're willing to do whatever it takes for their plan. They are plans of grandeur to absolutely damage you and kill you without actually having to kill you themselves. They are very focused on carrying out their plans, and if lie they must, they will. If twist your words they must, they will. If make you look crazy they must, they will. If totally discredit you they must, they will. If steal they must, they will. Everything that is wrong, that if they have to do it to win in their minds, that thing they will do. It's this thing that's very persistent, yet is and calculated. And you know, so I just felt the need to come and do this video, because you know, every time I recount my experience with people and I'm trying to tell them about this experience that I had with a narcissist, a tyrannical, out of control, out of his mind narcissist, people chalk it up to, oh, that was just a bad boss, and all bosses are like that, and all workplaces are like that. And I just wanted to come here to actually say, no, there's different levels. And the level of the diabolical narcissist, the tyrannical narcissist, is a different level. It's a violent level. It's a level that left me wanting to burn down a workplace. That's how crazy I had been driven. I had gone to a place so dark. It made sense to me that, I could burn that workplace down. That's how angry I was at being treated so badly, and being, you know, the kind of person that would be at work minding their own business, doing the very best that they could, really working harder than most of the people that I was working with, more diligent than most of the people that I was working with. Yet I was singled out, and I was then made to be the target of narcissistic abuse, narcissistic violence, and the tyranny thereof it. Narcissistic abuse is not this thing where when I'm trying to tell you about it, this is not the time where you should come in as a person and say, oh, I also went through that, and I almost lost hair as well. I was experiencing hair loss, and I was also stressed. Oh, I remember a situation like that, and it wasn't particularly narcissistic abuse. It was just a bad work situation. Narcissistic abuse is as serious as a heart attack. It's as serious as rape. It's as violent as rape. It's as violent as physical abuse. It's as violent as murder. The narcissist has found a way to traumatize you at that level, at the level of as if you were raped, at the level of as if you were physically abused, but without touching you. They found a way to do that, and it's called being manipulative. It's called being lying. It's called being unrelenting. It's called going around town and triangulating everybody who knows you and likes you against you, making people who know you and know you well and change their minds, causing them to change their minds about you and dislike you based on lies that they tell about you, based on an image that they put there about you that confuses people and somewhat convinces them that, oh, you're not who you present yourself to be, when actually they are the ones who are the chameleon, who present themselves to be a nice person, charismatic guy, and charming guy, and you know, a people's person. They are the ones who are actually the diabolical, two-faced person. they try to do everything of the same intensity and the same gruesomeness of violence as murder, as rape, as killing someone, as robbery, but without those actions. Everything they do is very stealthy, and it's hard to for the person who's not experiencing, it's hard to pinpoint it. If you experience it, you know when they're doing it. If you've ever been at the receiving end of narcissistic abuse, you know when they're doing it, when they're being abusive, when they're being tyrannical, when they're laying it on, and they're laying it on thick. But the typical normal person doesn't see it. They're like, oh, he just, you know, the person just walked in the room and said this, but you know what they're doing. You know exactly what they're doing, and they know exactly what they're doing. So I will put a link down below of ASSC Direct. If you are thinking, if you think maybe that you could have experienced or might have been experiencing some narcissistic abuse, or you know someone who says they've gone through this, I think it's very important then, as the people who are, you know, who hear that I've been at the receiving, who hear that someone's been at the receiving end of narcissism, of narcissistic abuse, to just study it for themselves and come to grips with understanding the nature of the abuse, so that perhaps they can grasp what it is, and how searing and how traumatizing it is, and how healing from it even takes such a long time, because it's so traumatizing, because it's so violent and it's so abusive, and it stays in your memory for a long time, and you have to actively and purposefully work on healing by forgiving the person, by blessing the person, by praying for the person, and praying good for the person, and letting go of the anger. And as for, you know, us who've been at the receiving end of the tyrannical abuse of a narcissist, you know, I would say the best thing is to stand your ground. You know, the other day I was watching a video with Oprah, a very old video with Oprah, and she was talking to, I will link the video down below, but she had gone to a prison to talk to a woman who had shot her husband and his new wife. And this woman was really trying to explain this to her, but and she did a good job of, you know, and my understanding of, you know, this woman's experience was that she had been married to a narcissist, and she had to endure narcissistic abuse. And she was trying to explain this to Oprah, but Oprah just was not understanding and could not give her any kind of compassion, because she was so focused on, but you killed 2 people. And she wasn't then hearing her picture, because she didn't understand that, oh, this woman had endured and been at the receiving end of narcissistic abuse. I'll link that video down below as well. What I wanted to say about this woman in particular is that I really admired that she stood her ground, though she was talking to Oprah, and she kept to her guns. And although she wasn't able to explain that I had been married to a narcissist, and narcissists make you crazy, and they make you look crazy to everyone else, but you know you're not wrong, and you know that you are being manipulated, and you know that you're being messed with. She wasn't able to quite explain that being at the receiving end of narcissistic abuse is as serious as rape. It's as serious as sexual abuse of a minor, or even a person who's not a minor. Sexual violence towards a minor or someone who's not a minor. It's as serious as a heart attack. It's as violent and as serious as murder. She wasn't able to get that through to Oprah, and that's what had me thinking about how as people who've endured this kind of abuse, how do we get it across? You know, I was talking to God, I'm like, how do we get it across to people just how serious this is, a kind of abuse? And you know, some of the things that came to my mind, that it's as serious as the violence of rape, it's as serious as the violence of murder, it's as serious as the violence of minor or even not minor sexual assault and sexual abuse and sexual violence. It's as serious as physical abuse, but for some reason there are no physical markers that are able to say, yes, this person was abused. And so it's confusing to people as to how it is that you experienced abuse, because you don't have a bruise, you don't have a this, but the way that it sears your mind. You know, one of the effects that I experienced under narcissistic abuse, besides utter stress, was that I started to lose my vision on my right hand eye, and that's when I knew I had to go. And I would sit in bed and literally just shake, and even just the thought of that person, not because I was afraid, but just at the thought of the situation and the intensity of it, it would make me shake. Not just physically, it's the tremor would come from such a deep place in my spirit, and because I was so traumatized and I was so deeply seared and hurt by the abuse. And that is about it. I think that's all I have to say, that it's as serious as a heart attack. And when people are trying to explain to you their narcissistic abuse experience, stop trying to one up them with your experiences that were not narcissistic experiences, and stop disavowing and downplaying and playing small their experience. Hear them out, try to understand, do your own research, and as for the ones who have endured it, find even more intense language. Do not back down. Do not let your story be overlooked and undermined because people don't understand it. Stand your ground. What you experienced is real, and it was violent, and it seared you, and it really hurt you, and it's taken time to recover from it. And you have a right to stand by, this is truly what happened to me, and I might have let it go, I might have moved on, but this happened to me. That is about it for today, and part 2 of this will actually talk more on. So stay tuned for part 2 of this dialogue and this discourse, and I will see you again next time. Peace.